All right. Well, hello, everyone. It is so nice to see everyone and to be able to show everyone today about a very interesting concept with investing that some investors, even those that are somewhat experienced, may not really be familiar with. Today, the examples I'm going to show are what are called wholesale real estate. And a lot of people, they may have heard something about this, but they may not understand the mechanics of how it works. And in this presentation, I'm going to step through several examples. I'm going to show an example of how an assignment contract would be filled out and how you can earn significant amounts of cash using wholesale real estate. It's another tool in your investing tool chest that you should be aware of. If you come across a deal, maybe this is something that you know you don't want to buy the asset, but you know you found a motivated seller. Well, with this, you have the beauty of being able to just simply sign a contract to purchase with the seller. And then instead of you following through and finishing with the purchase a month later or 6 weeks later, or whatever the date of closing or the scheduled future transaction date is, you reach out to another investor and you say, hey, I've got a contract. I can assign this contract to you and you can buy this asset. It is worth more than the amount of the contract. You can just pay me what is called an assignment fee. So take the example of maybe a small house that has a market value. The real value of the asset is $100,000. But say you find a seller that is in a situation where they want to sell, they have some motivation for a number of reasons, and we'll talk about some of those reasons. You can actually sign a purchase contract where you negotiate with the seller and you say, well, I'm not going to pay you $100,000. If you want to sell it right now, I'll pay you $65,000. The seller agrees. The seller signs a contract for $65,000. You take that contract for $65,000 and you go to another investor and you say, hey, I found a deal. I'll sell you this deal for $75,000. And the property's worth $100,000. So then you would assign your contract for $10,000 as your fee, and the buyer would pay the $10,000 to you, and then they would also pay the $65,000 to the seller. So, but you would never have to actually put any money out to do this. This can be done on smaller objects, smaller houses and flats, and it can also be done on larger houses, larger, even apartment communities. But this is an example of how you can make money with what's called wholesale real estate. So one of the first questions that people ask when they hear about this is, how can you sell something you don't own? You're not the owner. How can you sell it? Well, that is a great question. That is such a great question. You are not selling real estate. And that is an important legal distinction, because you're not actually selling the owner's asset. You're selling a contract to purchase the owner's asset. So that contract where you signed a contract to purchase this asset for significantly lower than the real value, that contract has value. And you are selling a contract. So you're actually selling a piece of paper is what you are selling. You're selling a contract to purchase. You're not selling real estate. You don't have to have a license to do this. You don't have to have a license as a real estate agent to do this, because you're not selling real estate. You are selling a contract. As long as the contract that the seller signed has language, legal language in the contract, that it is what is called an assignable contract. Assignable contract. As long as that legal language is in the contract, you are within your legal rights as the potential purchaser to turn around and sell the contract to someone else, because it's an assignable contract. You can buy it yourself, or you can assign it maybe to one of your companies, maybe one of your business partners, maybe one of your friends, or maybe just someone you met that has a lot of money that likes the idea of buying this asset. So that is what's called an assignable contract, and it is really exciting. And here, what we've got is we're going to talk about how does this work. Well, the first step is you will find a motivated seller that will accept less than market value. This won't work if you have somebody that wants to sell the asset at 100% of market value, because you can't get any money out of that. But if you can negotiate well, if you can get them to sign a contract for significantly below market value, then you can make money on this. So some typical reasons that someone might sell would be things like inheritance. Maybe they inherited a property. Maybe their parents died and they left them a property. Maybe their grandfather died and left a property in another area that they don't want, and they just want cash. Their plan is just to sell the property, but they don't want to go through all the hassle of finding a real estate agent. So when you appear and offer to buy the property, not for $100,000, but for $65,000, that sounds appealing to them because they can get their money faster and they don't have to do any work. Yes, they would make more money if they did it properly, where they cleaned up the property, where they advertised it with a professional real estate agent. But sometimes people prefer the easier route. Another example would be divorce. Sometimes there's a divorce going on and an asset needs to be sold in a divorce. It could also be legal problems. Maybe the person lost their job and can no longer pay the debt on the property. Maybe the person already is having a problem with their bank and the bank is threatening to take the property. So here's the key thing. You need to make an offer that is below 75% of the value of the asset. So the real market value, you need to make an offer that is lower than 75%. So if it's a $100,000 asset, the maximum you could offer would be maybe $75,000, but that's not going to leave any money hardly for you, because now you've got to find somebody that'll buy it at $80,000, at $82,000, and it's hard to get it done the more you do. If you get a little tiny discount of it's worth $100,000 and you negotiate a price of $95,000, that's not enough money to get any money out of it because you're too close to market price. But if you can get down below 75%, you can get money almost every time with no problem out of it. So you're going to sign a contract with the seller, but you're going to create the contract. Your lawyer is going to create the contract, or you're going to use a standard contract that you have created or that another experienced investor has given you that you can copy. And that contract will have what are called weasel clauses. Now, a weasel is an animal that is very nimble, where it can move, where it can go up and down, and it's very hard to catch a weasel because the weasel is able to maneuver. And that's why they're called weasel clauses, because when the seller says, hey, you said you were going to buy my property and you're not buying it, I'm going to sue you. Then you can point to the contract and you can say, Mr. Seller, I said that it depended on passing my inspection. This did not satisfy my inspection. I had a contractor look at it. I had some experts look at it and they didn't like it. I'm not going to buy it. And another thing could be subject to due diligence, subject to financing. You can say, Mr. Seller, I'm going to buy this subject to me finding a loan that's at a reasonably good market rate of interest. And then if you don't find a loan, you can say, well, Mr. Seller, in the contract, I said subject to finding a loan. I was not able to find a loan. I looked, I reached out to some lenders. Everybody thought your property wasn't worth that much. It's not that valuable. They didn't feel comfortable loaning on such an old property. So like a weasel, it gives you the legal ability to maneuver away if you have a problem with selling it. So You also, but once you get the contract signed, you then can call other people with money and you can ask them to purchase your contract. You can say, guys, you can say, my friend, I found a great deal. I'm bringing it to you. I just want to make some money on it. I just want to assign it to you. So I've got a contract where I can buy it for 65. It's worth 100. Just pay me 10. Just pay me 10 and I'll let you have it. You've got plenty of money. You'll make 25 on it. It's ready to go. I've got everything ready. And that can be appealing to somebody that has extra money, that doesn't have the time to negotiate with sellers, doesn't have the hassle for doing all of this. You're providing a service, and it's actually a valued service. So that's an important thing to understand. Now, I've got a video here where I'm going to talk about why off market. There's a big difference between off market and on market. On market means it's advertised publicly, where the entire world knows it's for sale. It's on the internet with a big for sale sign. There's a for sale sign close to the object. Off market is, there is no for sale sign. Nobody knows it's for sale. So this clip goes through some of the importance of that, where it really demonstrates why that is important.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about off-market real estate versus on-market real estate and which is the right choice. So you want to avoid on-market deals. So anything that you see that's advertised for sale publicly, maybe it's on the multiple listing service. Maybe there's a real estate agent that put a sign in the yard. Maybe if it's a commercial deal, it's on LoopNet advertised for sale. You want to avoid these things. You don't want to go near them. You're just going to use a lot of your time and energy chasing the deals that all the other investors are chasing, okay? You've got to find your own deals, and you only want off market. Now, why off market? Okay, first of all, let me say this. Is it possible to find a deal every now and then that's on the market? Yes, it is. Is it possible to make money on a listed deal? Of course it's possible, but it's a lot harder. You want to stack the odds in your favor. You don't want to be doing this the hard way. You want to do it the easy way. And the easy way is you go out there and you generate your own leads for motivated sellers, and then you're going to sort them to determine which sellers are motivated, which are not motivated. And I'll go through that in another lesson, how to quickly do that. But let's just go through it again, because I want to make it crystal clear. If you get on the internet and you see it as for sale, where there's some real estate agent that has a listing that they're offering it, you don't call that agent. Don't waste your time. You don't even want to talk to them. It's just a waste of time. Basically, if you pick up the phone and call the real estate agent is going to try to sell you on buying the property. That's what they do. So they're going to use all of their sales skills to try to sell you. So if you tell them you're an investor, they're going to encourage you to make an offer. Then they're going to tell you that they want to see, that you've got all the money lined up, ready to go. And they're going to do their absolute best sales pitch. You don't want any of that. You don't even want to talk to them. You're just wasting time. Don't chase those deals. That's not an effective way. It's so much easier to find an off-market deal. What's an off-market deal? An off-market deal is one that is not advertised as for sale. So you don't want to go and make 100 lowball offers on listed properties. The reason you don't want to do that is it's going to waste either a lot of your time, or if you've got some real estate agent that's a new agent that you've convinced them that it's a great idea to work with you as a buyer's agent, where they're going to go out and make offer after offer at 50 or 60 cents on the dollar, it's just going to waste time. Because even on the ones where you do occasionally get the seller to say yes, there's normally a bunch of offers that come in right at the wrong time that are lined up with, fantastic financing, proof of funds, all of this. You don't make life hard. go for the easy money, and the easy money is off market. So don't pay any attention to what the other investors are doing. Don't worry about it. You're going to keep it simple. And basically, you could do something as simple as going and knocking on doors in a particular neighborhood. And when the person opens the door, you could say, hey, I'm looking to buy a property in this neighborhood, and I wanted to see if you guys might consider selling this house. If you go knock on 100 doors, you're going to find a deal. You go knock on 300, 400, 500 doors, you're going to find a deal. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that you need to go knock on doors. I'm just using it as an example. There's many ways to build a pipeline. But if you go to a house and there's a for sale sign and it has a real estate agent, just walk on by. Don't waste your time talking to them. Don't call the real estate agent. Leave that to the ones that want to do that. That's the hard way. Okay. Every now and then I meet these guys that are investors and they tell me about, how good they're doing with on-market deals. If an investor has the skill to make money with an on-market deal where you have to go and successfully compete against all the other investors that are chasing deals, and he successfully wins, that guy's got a lot of talent. And if he takes that same talent and energy to be able to apply it to off-market deals, he'll do 10 times better, if not 100 times better. And the other thing, you don't think that these real estate agents are going to necessarily help you. They just are trying to size up if you can actually buy it. Now, they'll be friendly. I'm not saying, there's a wide range of agents. Some will help, maybe some won't, but I'm just trying to make it short and simple where you don't waste a lot of time. That real estate agent, if you do successfully get the seller to accept what they would have accepted, your crazy offer of, $10 in earnest money or nothing, and it's all contingent on you getting a loan. That real estate agent, number one, he's probably, when he presents the offer, he's going to basically talk down about it to the seller because he's embarrassed to present it because he knows it's a flimsy offer. And he doesn't, he feels bad about even presenting your low ball offer. So what you want to do is you want to basically deal with the seller directly. And the beauty of it is a seller can say yes. And a seller doesn't always have all the latest analysis in terms of exactly what the property's worth. And sometimes if you just ask them, what would you sell the property for me, to me for, they will say a number that is different than the market value. But since you didn't come in and ask them, you said, what would you sell it to me for? You very often will get a surprise where they may quote a different thing. That when we go through the negotiation piece, I'll cover that in a lot more detail, how to quickly get that done. But don't waste any time chasing on-market deals. If after you make money with off-market deals, if you want to make it harder on yourself, go chase some on-market deals. Okay. And then you can do that if that's entertaining to go through that extra hassle. So that's the most important thing. You got to be doing off market. It's the only way to go.
Okay, fantastic. That is the key to all of this is if you want to be successful with putting contracts on assets and then selling the contracts, you got to do that on the off market side. You have to locate these sellers. And it's just critical. You want to make sure that you avoid, and I emphasize this because this is the number one mistake that most new wholesalers make. They cannot stop themselves from calling real estate agents because they think, I want to find a property that I can make some money on. Where can I find a property? I'll get on the internet and I'll look. Wrong. You're not going to find a property on the internet because a property that's on the internet, everybody knows it's there. You have to find off market where it's not advertised for sale. And you also don't want that real estate agent in between you and the seller because the real estate agent represents the seller and the real estate agent is against you. So the seller has picked out a professional real estate agent to represent him. And now you have to negotiate with this professional real estate agent. That's a bad deal. It's better if you negotiate directly with the seller because then it's one-on-one and it's a fair competition. It's not fair when you're having to compete with the seller's real estate agent that's got 10 or 20 years experience negotiating real estate deals. So that's why you want to negotiate with the seller directly. And that is just critical. So you want to avoid on-market deals. So anything that's advertised for sale, don't mess with. There's just too much competition. This is an example, and I'm not suggesting that you do this, and I'm definitely not suggesting that you do this in a bad or a dangerous neighborhood. But if you've got a nice neighborhood, maybe a low crime neighborhood, this is a great way to do this. But if you're talking about a rough neighborhood where it's dangerous, obviously don't do this. You can knock on doors. Most people hate this idea because they're afraid to knock on doors, but it will find motivated sellers. And you will be amazed because it's about 1 out of 100. You'll find somebody that's been thinking about selling their property. But that's only one example. Another example is you can put advertisements out. You can go make some signs. It's very inexpensive to put signs together. You just write a message, and then put these messages out. These messages, you can put them out anywhere. Of course, you're just trying to get leads coming in. So you could say any house or any flat, any condition, cash offer, behind on payments, stopped foreclosure. These sorts of messages you put out there with regular advertising. Maybe you advertise in the newspaper. Maybe you get some business cards that say this on the cards, and you just pass out cards to everyone that you meet saying, I'm an investor, I'm a cash buyer. Let me know when you have somebody that has a property they want to sell that's not with a real estate agent. I won't buy it if it's with a real estate agent. I only want to work with the seller. So then that'll get rid of the ones that have a real estate agent. And that's what you want. You want just you and the seller. You can also, another thing that you can do is you can contact people that have a property for sale by owner and they're advertising it. And you can say, I see you have a property for sale. I'm not interested. I don't want that property, but I wanted to ask you, do you have any other properties that you're thinking about selling that you're not advertising for sale now? And if you ask that question maybe 20 times to 20 different people that are advertising one property for sale, you will find one of the 20 that will say, yeah, I've got another property, but I haven't yet put it on the market. I don't have a real estate agent. I don't know. It's not really ready to be sold. Then on that one, you say, I'm interested. Let me make an offer on it. Let's work something out. And then you can go into negotiating. That way you've eliminated all of your competition. So it is fantastic. It is fantastic. Another thing that can be good is you can also use Facebook and Google ads. And this is something that I find that it's good to go with experienced people to help with it. And if you go with a company called Faith Digital, you can talk to Christopher or Joshua, and they can get you set up with a program where every month you can get on a monthly advertising campaign. And they've got lots of experience actually with this type of marketing to find a motivated seller. So they are fantastic, and they're a resource that I encourage you to check out if you're looking for something like that. Of course, another tactic that you can do is you can look for what are called code violations. Every city, every government likes to give out violations. When someone has something wrong that they don't like, they will issue a violation. Maybe they will say the property's in bad condition. Here's a violation. Fix this, or we're going to charge you a lot of money. That creates a motivated seller, because that motivated seller, he gets one of those violations and he thinks, I didn't have enough money to fix the problem. And now I'm being told that if I don't fix the problem, I'm going to get charged more money. That ain't good. So that is an example of code violations. And, this is something that you can just call. You can have a conversation. You have to find the person's phone number or their email, but usually you can look this up through searching, the address of the property. Sometimes you can get a list from the city, depending on what geographic area you are in. So it's definitely something that's interesting. Now, the next thing that you need is you need to be very good at sorting, because this is what also gets people when they're new to this. They're just happy to have someone to talk to. And that's understandable. If it's the first time you've done this, it's exciting to have somebody respond to your advertising and to feel like you're close to getting that contract signed and being able to sell that contract for money. But the key thing is only 1 out of 20 sellers is truly motivated and in an equity position where they can give away equity. So you'll find some sellers that are motivated, but they may not have enough what's called equity, where they own the property without debt, or where the debt level is low enough that they can accept a low enough offer for the offer to make sense. So you're going to, when you run into a seller that's not motivated, what you're going to want to do is to remember it's not your job to create motivation for them. And that is a waste of your energy to try to create motivation for them. They either have motivation or they don't have motivation. So what you can do is you can just give them one of your cards, or you can say, if you get more motivated in the future, please call me, but please understand that I am not a full price buyer. I can't pay you full price since I am an investor. However, I can still buy it for a fair enough price if you want to sell it, and I will close on it quickly and make it easy for you. So it's easier to find a different seller that is more motivated than to try to take one that's only a little bit motivated and make them become motivated. But it's also good to practice. So there's nothing wrong with, if you find a seller that's not really motivated, there's no harm in you practicing your negotiating skills a little bit to just go ahead and try to negotiate with them a little bit. Try to get them to say the first number, try to get them to say the lowest number. And that's fine. You can still get some benefit out of that just for practicing, but you don't want to spend a lot of time wasting that time on them. Time management with sellers is absolutely critical. You know, it's okay to use high pressure sales tactics to try and get the seller to agree, but you don't want to waste hours of your own time. If the seller won't agree to sell, you should consider if your time is better spent finding another seller that is fundamentally more motivated. The reason it can take many hours of talking to try and convert a non-motivated to a motivated seller, in almost all cases, it doesn't work trying to convert them. So the energy that you're going to spend talking about all of this, you could have, in a very short conversation, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour at the most, had a conversation with them, tried to determine if they're motivated or not, and then move on. But don't get into a situation where you're spending days and days trying to negotiate with them, because even if you do successfully use every negotiating trick to get them to finally agree to sell, they have a bad habit of reversing on you. So they will reverse on you and they will back out. They will back out. I assure you that you've got to find a seller that's truly motivated. So let's imagine that you're having a conversation with a seller and you are dealing with several categories. So this is a great example. You can just tell by the way someone is talking if they're motivated or if they're not motivated. So let's take the example of a motivated seller. A motivated seller might say something to you like, I'm 3 months behind on my payments and I need to sell. I don't care if I get anything out of it. I'll sell it for what I owe. That's a motivated seller. Right away that's a motivated seller. Now imagine that you have a conversation with the seller, and instead of that, they say, for the right price, we might sell, but it would have to be a really good price. Right away, that's not a motivated seller. Don't waste your time. Just leave them. Just tell them. If you run into one of those, you just say, well, listen, I'm an investor. If you get more motivated in the future, please call me. I'll be happy to buy your property, but I can't pay you full price. So if you can sell it at a discount where there's some profit for me, I'd be happy to buy it. But, call me in the future if you get more motivated. Have a nice day. And then you just move on. Here's a motivated seller. They might say something like, my granddad died and I inherited this property and it's in another state. And, I was going to contact a real estate agent in that state to have them put it on the market, but, I haven't done that yet. And I mean, if you want to buy it, I just want to sell the thing. I really don't care about it. I wish I could just sell it and not have to mess with it. That's a motivated seller. Now, here's a non-motivated seller. If they say something like, well, listen, you're welcome to bring me an offer and I will consider it. Anything is for sale for the right price. That's not a motivated seller. Just cut them off right there and say, well, listen, I'm an investor. I can't pay you full price. Here's my business card. If you get more motivated, call me in the future. Next example, you might hear someone say, we're moving from Texas to Florida and we need to sell. We already purchased another house there in Florida. We need to sell, or the house is going to be vacant. We're going to have to get a property management company. We really need to sell. That's a motivated seller. A non-motivated seller will tell you, they'll say, look, I'm not motivated and I'm not going to take any low ball offers. They'll warn you up front. Don't you even try to give me a low ball offer. If you want to make me a good, serious offer, I will consider it. That's not a motivated guy. Just give him a business card and say, well, listen, I'm an investor. I can't pay you full price. But if you get more motivated in the future, just call me. I'll be happy to buy it, but I can't pay you full price. You have a nice day, sir. And that's it. That's all you do. That's basically, you're going to sort those leads. You need to determine the value of the asset. That's a fairly simple thing to do. If you haven't done it before, you just are taking average values of comparable properties, how much they sold for per square foot or per square meter. And then you determine based on that average and the size of your property. You also want to make sure you're comparing the same years, similar quality, but you get some estimates and you can find a lot of people that will have experience with that can help you with it. And then you determine what's the value of the asset. Oh, here's a good one. Here is a good one. I love this one. This is about the earnest money. Oh, yeah. So what do you do about the earnest money? The earnest money is upfront money. This is money that some sellers, particularly those that are more experienced, will ask you for. So you'll hear a bell go off if a seller is very concerned about earnest money. You're dealing with someone that's a more experienced seller. And that's fine because they can be as experienced as they are, and you're still going to do things the way that you do things. So the first step is you want to agree on the price. So let's say that you agree on a price of $65,000 on an asset that's worth $100,000. Once you have that agreement verbally, instead of discussing the details about earnest money or upfront money, after you agree on the price, you tell the seller, okay, I'll put an offer together for you to sign at $65,000. If I prepare a purchase agreement for that price, you will sign it and not back out. And then you just wait and you listen to what they say. If they're like, well, I need to review it, I need to think about it, then you know that you don't actually have an agreement, and you need to keep talking to them and say, well, what's there to think about? What's the concern? Well, I mean, I'm not sure. What they're really saying when they say that is, why don't you give me an offer? And then once I get your offer, I can talk to everybody and see if somebody will pay me more than your offer. That's what that really means. So if you hear that, if you hear anything other than, yeah, I'll sign it, you know you don't have a deal. And there's no point in writing up a bunch of offers and wasting your time if the guy won't agree to sell it. So just move on if he won't do it. Say he says, yeah, I'd sign it. As soon as he says that, you want to immediately, as in maybe in your briefcase, maybe in your car, you have a contract. Then you're going to fill in the contract by hand. You'll have it printed, but you'll have a few parts that you can fill in by hand. Or if it's being done electronically, you would do it immediately and send it to them immediately, ideally where you're on Zoom with them or something where you can talk to them so that you can try to overcome any objections. But the contract that you send, it's going to say a very low amount of earnest money. It's going to almost say zero. You don't want it to say zero, though. You want it to have a little value, because technically you may not have a real contract if there's not earnest money. So you want to put in 10, or you want to put in 100. So that would be what you would write in on the contract. And then sometimes the seller, especially those that are more experienced, they'll say, hey, listen, what are you talking about? $10 for earnest money? That's ridiculous. I mean, I talked to my friend, and earnest money should be like 5,000. Why did you write in 10? Well, if the seller objects like this, you want to tell the seller that it makes no difference if the earnest money is 10 or 10,000, since the seller will never get any money from you unless the deal closes. And that's so important to just explain it to them like that so they don't get confused. So you're going to say, well, Mr. Seller, whether it's 5,000 or 10,000, you're not going to ever get any money from me unless the deal closes. And then you can tell the seller you've never lost earnest money on a deal. You can say, Mr. Seller, listen, I've never lost earnest money on a deal, and I'm not going to start with you. So if the seller refuses to let you control the deal, so say the seller's like, look, I don't mind signing this, but I need earnest money. I need this. If they won't play ball with you the way that you want to play ball, what you do is you just leave. You just leave and you go find another motivated seller. Because the minute you make the mistake of putting hard earnest money on the table, that seller is going to be obsessed with trying to get that earnest money. If anything goes wrong on the deal, instead of an extension, they're going to take that earnest money. And I have been on the other side of this, where I've had sellers in the past try to do deals with me, and I've had multiple sellers lose earnest money on several occasions when they weren't ready to close. And they would have done better to write in 10, but they wanted to do it the normal way. So if a seller comes back to you later, say you break away from the seller, you're polite at all times, but he comes back later. Imagine that you almost do a deal, but he's belly aching about the earnest money, and he won't let you do the deal the way you want to do the deal, but he emerges a few weeks or a month or two later and says, I've thought about it. I'm okay. I'll do that deal with you. I'll let you try it that way. That's fine. I mean, I understand. If you hear that conversation, that means one thing, and it means one thing only. What it means is the seller tried whatever he was going to try to get more money, and he failed. And now he's given up, and he's thinking he's just going to walk back in and take that $65,000 from you. But that is when you tell Mr. Seller, I know, but at the time when I was saying it was going to be 65, I thought I could, but now I can only do 62. I'm so sorry. And you will be amazed how when they come back the second time, if you do that, when they're at that point, they will almost every single time agree to more of a discount. So that's just something that's an important thing to know, because if they're coming back to you, they're not coming back to you because they like you. They're not coming back to you because they're your friend. They're not coming back to you because they thought about it and it makes sense. They're coming back to you because they already tried selling it to the other person that they thought would be a buyer, and they probably made an even lower offer than you. So that's why that conversation is taking place. And that should immediately signal, if the seller comes back, you have to drop your offer lower. I'm not talking about cut it in half, but take a nibble out, take another nibble out. So you want to tell the seller your offer is also still contingent on inspection, and that you don't anticipate any problems now, but you will not pay money before the property passes your full inspection. And if for any reason you decide you don't want to buy the property, you just say it didn't pass my inspection, because there's always something wrong with the property. Here's an example of an assignable contract. And I'm going to just show a clip here on how this is filled out. It's every country this exists in. You can find assignable contracts in any country. So this is not just the United States. This would be the UK, Germany. This would be Ukraine. This would be any country. They have assignable contracts. Of an assignment of contract. So let's imagine that you found a property that has a value of 100,000, and you found a motivated seller that agreed to sell the property to you for 65,000. So you said, okay, Mr. Seller, I'm going to pay you 65,000. And then That was on January 5th, just as an example. Now, let's say that 20 days have passed and you have found an end buyer. Now you've found somebody that's another investor that has money, and you don't really want this asset anyway. So you want to sell your contract to the other investor and then have the other investor pay you $10,000. So for the other investor, it's still a good deal because the property's worth $100,000 and they're able to pay $75,000. So they still got $25,000 in equity. It's a good deal for you because you got $10,000 and you didn't have to do anything except sign some papers. So here's how you would do this. So you would come in and first it's going to reference when was the original contract. Let's say it's December 25th. Okay, between assignor, that is your name, and assignee, this is name of investor buying your contract. Okay, assignor is the buyer under a certain contract for sale of real estate dated. Remember, you did this back on January 5th in this example. Given and executed by, this is the name of the seller. To, okay, the buyer, you are your name. Dated, it was dated on January 25th. Sale of the real property, 123 Main Street. Then the assignee is, this is the name of investor buying your contract. And then this is, let's pretend this street is 2020 West 5th Street, now your name, because you're the assigner, you've negotiated a purchase price of $65,000. Okay. You're going to charge your friend or the other investor $10,000. That should be 10,000. Okay. The total purchase price is 75,000. Okay. So now you're going to flip this where you're going to ask for money. You're going to say, listen, I need 10,000 up front. Your friend or the other investor is going to say, I'm not going to pay 10,000 up front. I'm going to pay it when it's due at closing. You're going to negotiate back and forth and you say, well, at least pay 5,000. At least pay 5,000. At least pay 2. You settle on some amount. Let's just say you just put it at 1,000, but you want to try to get some money out of them before closing so that if it doesn't close, you've got it done. And then basically everybody signs it. And that's it. That's how it approximately looks like. Now, your geographic area, whatever country you're in, I assure you, whatever country you're in, there is this type of a form. It may be in a different language, but assignment of contracts fairly common in contract law across other countries. So, full of an assignment of contract. So, okay, very good, very good. So that is the presentation. I've got one announcement that I want to make, and this is such an exciting announcement. I'm really looking forward to sharing this with everyone. Everyone is invited, and if you're watching this webinar and you didn't have a chance to make it today, you are also invited. We have two completely new passive income webinars. And they're on every Thursday. So we've got our normal meeting on Sunday, but then passive income Thursday. And the first webinar is on how you can earn passive income with U.S. mortgage debt investing. This is so important. If you're, for example, a UK citizen and you're unhappy with how your pounds have been losing value against the dollar, you need to come to this webinar. We present some solutions here on how you can earn passive income with U.S. mortgage debt investing. And then we've got another webinar also on Thursday. The Zoom links for each webinar are there on how you can earn passive income and help rebuild Ukraine. This company, Andesite Blue, is doing fantastic things. This is one of my companies in Ukraine, and we are going to be involved with helping to rebuild Ukraine. You can come to the webinar every Thursday and just look at your time zone. And with this, you can earn passive income, a significant passive income, and know that you're doing something really worthwhile and helpful to help rebuild Ukraine. So very good. That is it for our presentation for today. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any questions.